Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. Like, if somebody has her, just please bring her back. I need to see everybody.
County Communications, this is Stacey.
Hi, Stacey. My name's Nichol, and I'm calling because I'm concerned about a friend of mine.
Walked in the house and nothing was vanished. Nothing was here. I mean, she wasn't here. The kids weren't here. Nobody was here.
The husband of a missing pregnant woman is in jail and now charged with her.
The 33-year-old accused of his pregnant wife Shanann and their 2 daughters showed no emotion.
His arrest, confession, conviction, and sentencing, it all went down really fast.
What happened in the Watts family?
He's been the best thing, besides my children, that has ever happened to me.
He didn't have a wedding ring on his finger. He mentioned that he did have a significant other.
All right, you ready?
Do it.
Okay, stay still.
Well, I just realized that he was lying to me, and I was like, well, if you can lie to me about this, what else are you lying to me about?
This is the most inhumane, vicious crime that I have handled out of the thousands of cases that I have seen.
Chris Watts thinks he deserves to get out of prison.
I want you to close your eyes and imagine a scenario with me for a moment. You've just returned home from a weekend work trip and you're exhausted. You got in at 2 a.m. and you have to be up early to start your day, but you also feel extremely lucky because you work with one of your best friends who was also on the trip with you. The 2 of you are neighbors, you're inseparable, and you talk every single day. And your friend is pregnant with her 3rd child and you couldn't be happier for her. She's already got 2 kids with her adoring husband, and their lives seem picture perfect. So you drop your friend off at 2 a.m. and it's now after 9 a.m. the next day, and you realize your friend hasn't texted you, which is weird because you saw her only a few hours ago and she said she'd text you because she might need a ride to her prenatal appointment today. So you're a little surprised that it's been silence. You try texting, then calling. No response. Maybe you're overreacting, but this isn't like your friend, so you head over to her house just to check in. You punch the code in the front gate and march confidently up to the front door, and you knock and knock, but the house is dark and silent. Where is she? She should be back from her doctor's appointment by now, and suddenly you feel a cold rush of anxiety and worry. What if something happened to her? So you call your friend's husband and don't waste any time chit-chatting. Where is your wife, you ask? And he responds, oh, she's on a play date with the kids. But you know that isn't true because you're at their house and you're looking at your friend's car in their garage and the car seats for the girls are in the car. So now you're fighting down panic. You call your friend for the 100th time and still no answer. Where is she? Where are her 2 daughters? Why did her husband lie to you? Why isn't he concerned? So you grab your phone and call 911. And this is what we know. So the nightmare situation I just described was the reality that Nicole Atkinson found herself in on the morning of August 13th, 2018 in Frederick, Colorado. Now, what she would later learn was that her instincts were unfortunately correct and that her friend Shanann Watts and Shanann's children would never be seen alive again. And what Nicole would be shocked to learn was that the person responsible was someone she never could have expected. Now, Chris Watts' heinous murder of his wife Shanann and their adorable children is a case that you're probably familiar with, at least on some level. I mean, I know a ton of people have covered this case a zillion times, but we're gonna take a bit of a different approach today, as there's more to the story than I think many might be aware of and what I've seen most often covered. And I think there are larger conversations to be had about abusive relationships, infidelity, and the psychology of family annihilators. Like, were there warning signs that friends and family missed, or did a seemingly normal, non-violent person just snap one day? Now, there are unsung heroes of this case who I want to highlight, and a close re-examination of the details has me wondering if there's one other person in particular who may have assisted Chris and got away with murder. But before we go too deep down into the rabbit hole, oh, hi there, hello, hi, it's my face again, Swoop, 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 swoop. Hi, hello, welcome. I know y'all gonna come for me if I don't do the theme song, and I didn't do it in the last one, so we gotta squeeze it in. Now, if you're new here, hi, my name is Swoop. I'm a documentary filmmaker and am obsessed with stories that challenge what I thought I knew about them. So if you're into mind-bending deep dives that tell stories from a fresh, new perspective, you've come to the right place. If that sounds good to you, please go ahead and flirt with the like button, okay? Don't be coy, okay? She don't like that. Also, hit subscribe and turn on all notifications so you don't miss a single deep dive. And also, I have to just forewarnings, sometimes we take it to petty university around here, okay? Because bitch, petty is my love language, okay? Petty is my coping mechanism for all the bullshit. So if you can relate and you want to join the Petty University community, welcome, come one, come all. And of course, you can grab your exclusive Petty University apparel. The shop is linked below as always. And of course, a general disclaimer, everything I present here is opinion based on the research. Many things have been proven in a court of law, but I will still refer in general to statements beyond the trial as alleged. Please do form your own opinion. Share it in the comments. I would love to hear what you think about what we cover today. And as always, don't spread any hate. Okay, we are gonna dig into more of this story, but first, a big, huge thank you to our delicious sponsor, AG1, who y'all are going to love. So I don't know about you, but I had a lot of self-care goals going into this new year, and well, things didn't go quite as planned. From recovering from a car accident and just the everyday stresses of life, my self-care had taken a backseat until about a month ago when I finally established a healthy daily routine with AG1. AG1 believes that giving your body the nutrition it needs should be simple, which is why they pioneered a comprehensive, all-in-one foundational nutrition that addresses whole body wellness. Think of this as like your daily glow up of vitamins, but way better. AG1 combines 9 health products that work together as one, replacing your multivitamin that, let's face it, okay? Y'all forget to take those anyways, okay, if you're anything like me. And it replaces your multi-minerals, pre- and probiotics, immunity support, and so much more. Now, I think my favorite part about drinking AG1 isn't just how I feel overall, but it has helped me form a daily self-care habit. Every morning when I get up, I make my bed, pet the bills, and do what I call the morning chug, where I just drink a bunch of water because I feel so thirsty and groggy in the morning usually. But drinking a whole bunch of water isn't exactly fun, okay? So now I mix 1 scoop of AG1 in my water, or you can mix it with juice, and this makes my morning routine so much more enjoyable because I honestly feel like I'm pampering myself with all of these nutrients and actively doing some quick and easy self-care the very first thing to start my day. And bonus, it makes my water taste so much better. Like, it has a very like kind of gentle sweetness and like a hint of vanilla to it, so it's really refreshing. And since I started drinking AG1, I'm feeling more energized, my gut is more settled, I feel a little more focused, and I just really like being able to check off that one daily box where I did something truly good for my body. Now, AG1 uses the highest quality ingredients, is life-friendly, whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, and no matter how you choose to drink AG1, it is like the healthiest self-care that you could do for yourself in under 1 minute a day. So if you're like me and want to begin or get back on your journey to delicious nutritional self-care with just a minute a day, tap my link to grab your AG1 and also get a 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D3, K2, and 5 travel packs free with your first purchase. This has been one of the best decisions that I've made for myself, and that is such a great deal. So tap my link to get your AG1 because you deserve it, honey. Okay, back to the doc. Now, before we jump in, I do want to extend my deepest condolences to Shanann's family and friends over the horrifying loss of what happened to Shanann and her daughters, Bella and Celeste, and their unborn child, Nico. This is one of the most gut-wrenching cases. I have avoided covering it for a long time, even though a lot of you have requested this one. It's just so awful. Shanann and the children were all so young and had so much life ahead of them, and to be taken like this by the one who promised to love them completely and be their safe place is just the worst kind of betrayal. I can't even imagine what their friends and family have dealt with, but I do hope that over time that they've been able to find some ounce of healing and that their memories will forever be a blessing. Okay, let's dive in.
Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. Like, if somebody has her, just please bring her back. I need to see everybody.
34-year-old Shanann Watts was a fun, energetic woman and doting mother to her 2 little girls, Bella, aged 4, and Celeste, aka Cece, aged 3.
She'd do anything for her children, and she wanted them to have everything growing up. There's nothing she wouldn't do for those children.
She loved sharing her day-to-day life as a full-time mom with her Facebook friends, and she worked from home selling lifestyle products to make some side income for her family. And of course, with those types of products, there's going to be often a lot of social media posting and building out the network, right? So she really kind of lived her life publicly in her circle.
And my all-time absolute favorite of our Plus line is our Balance. If you have not tried Balance is absolutely amazing. I bought 2, got the 3rd for free. Hold on, I gotta pour you more, Cece. The instructions said 500, 7 minutes per pound. And then, watch out, Cece, watch your hands. 7 minutes per pound, and then leave in the oven on off for 2 hours, which seems a little long for me. Here's the girls dancing. Dance. She wants you to hold her hands, Bella. Alexa, turn it up.
Now, her husband, 33-year-old Chris Watts, often made appearances in his wife's videos, and by all accounts, they had this kind of picture-perfect marriage. Shanann's parents loved their son-in-law and were overjoyed to see their daughter so happy.
And I got a friend request from Chris on Facebook, and I was like, oh, what the heck, I'm never gonna meet him. Except, one thing led to another, and 8 years later, we have 2 kids, we live in Colorado, and he's the best thing that has ever happened to me. And because of my health challenges, because I got so sick, I let him in. And he only knew me at that time. He knew me at my worst, and he accepted me. And, you know, through your vows, like through sickness and everything, he's been there. He was the one that let me lay on him and fall asleep for 3.5 hours on his lap while he had to pee. He is the best thing that has ever happened to me.
Of course, there were some reports from neighbors, which we will get into, of some incidents that happened in the driveway, some yelling, arguments, that type of thing. But as far as the research goes that I've been able to do, it never really led to neighbors or people thinking it was anything beyond, you know, just like the casual marital moment that happens with a lot of couples. Now, Chris was an oil field operator for a company called Anadarko.
Chris Watts, WATTS.
But despite his steady income, the couple faced some financial issues, which we will get into later. But in spite of those issues, which, you know, let's be honest, like many couples face those issues, unfortunately. But Shanann got pregnant with their 3rd child, and she was just like over the moon, like just thrilled. And like her children were really just the central focus of her life. And at first, Chris seemed quite happy too.
We did it again. I like that shirt. Really?
Really.
That's awesome. So pink means...
That's just the test.
I know. They're just the pink is gonna be girls.
I don't know. Just the test.
That's awesome.
But then something shifted, and seemingly out of nowhere, Chris's personality shifted. He wasn't like the same loving, easygoing guy. He was more on the edge, and as you can imagine, Shanann, you know, being pregnant, like she's literally like with child in the womb, was getting just really stressed out, right? Like I think anybody would in that situation. And at one point, Shanann actually confided in a friend via text message saying, Chris told me last night he's scared to death about this 3rd baby, and he's happy with just Bella and Celeste and doesn't want another baby. He has changed. I don't know who he is. He hasn't touched me all week, kissed me, talked to me, except for when I'm trying to figure out what is wrong. He's been distant. We've never had a problem in our relationship like this. No joke, never. This is total left field. What if he really doesn't love me anymore? He said we are not compatible anymore. He refused to hug me after he said he will try to work it out. Said he thought another baby would fix his feelings siblings said he refused couples counseling. And her friends tried to console her, and Shanann was determined to make things work for the good of her children. I mean, if you think about it, like, she's literally pregnant with this child, and then her husband, who was like happy about it, is now like, I don't want this kid. And it's like, what the she's supposed to do? The child is in her belly and she's having this child. I can't even imagine being in a situation like that. But also you can see that her instincts were right here. Unfortunately, that something was very, very off. One friend texted her, "It will be okay, just give him time. He's adjusting to the idea of the baby. He's scared. He shouldn't be doing this to you, but he's a good guy. He will fix it. He loves you." So just a few days after these text conversations, Shanann arrived home from a work trip in the early hours of the morning on August 13th, 2018. Her close friend Nicole Atkinson, who we mentioned earlier, dropped her off at her house at around 1:48 a.m. Shanann was glad to be home to be with her daughters and was looking forward to a prenatal appointment later that day. And she was 15 weeks pregnant with a baby boy who she and Chris planned to name Nico. And she was also determined to work things out with her husband, with Chris. And like, you know, Chris had promised her that they would try to fix things. But what she didn't know was that Chris was, how do I put this? He was dipping his toes in someone else's pool. Yes, perfect husband Chris Watts had been getting his whistle wet by another woman, which will uncover a whole new aspect to this case that is wild. I'm sorry, I can already feel the petty brewing up inside of me because I have a lot of thoughts about this Chris character, Christopher. But we're gonna get into a little more of that because that's gonna be more of the focus. Let me ask y'all this, like, what do you do if you've fallen out of love with your wife? Say you're Chris. Do you do couples counseling, a separation trial period, maybe a divorce? Well, if you're resident genius Chris Watts, apparently the only solution is to heartlessly end your whole family and tell everyone hours later your wife did it all, not you. Now, just a warning, I'm not going to get graphic about what happened. I think most people probably know what happened. That's not the point of this doc today. There's been a zillion podcasts that share all of the horrific details. And also the second warning, I think Chris Watts is a dumbass. Like, the petty is coming. I don't even know how else to say it, but as the story progresses and with what Chris is literally saying right now, like right in this present today now, like I genuinely think he's a f***ing dumbass who routinely tries my patience constantly. I can only imagine the friends and family who've had to deal with him. So y'all were warned, okay? Y'all know a bitch is gonna tell you when I have some bias, and bitch, I got some bias today, okay? Christopher. I don't like Chris. Okay, I digress. Now, we first have to briefly talk about what he did, but again, that's not the central focus of this doc, so I will be brief. In the early hours of the following morning on August 18th, which by the way, on August 17th, that woman who he was dipping his toes in with, he was with her. We'll get to that. Now, after Shanann had arrived home, Chris woke her up and the two of them got in an argument about the state of their marriage. And now during this fight, which of course, we don't know all of the exact details. We have just the words of a liar and a dumbass to go off of. But Chris Watts did the unthinkable. He climbed on top of Shanann and strangled her. Now, Chris's explanation of what happened next and in what order has changed several times. So I'm going to tell you what his story was at the time of his conviction, and we can get into the other versions of his story a little bit later. And I just want to take a quick little sidebar note because this case deals with strangulation. I have covered this before, like in the Gabby Petito docs when we were desperately trying to find her and found out what Bryan did to her. I shared some of the details about strangulation in DV, and if any of you have ever remotely experienced anything like that, I just want you to be fully aware and know how dangerous that actually is. I was strangled by someone very, very close to me, and I've shared a few details of that. And it took me years to figure out, and this was purely by my own just education after having done so many of these docs, but it took me years to actually understand that strangulation doesn't have to result in you no longer being alive. Anytime someone, if they go for your throat, if they punch at near your throat or your face, or they try to grab at, or they actually get hands around, or some type of object around, even if you don't pass out, if you live through it, that doesn't mean you weren't strangled. You were, and it is a very serious indicator. It's actually one of the leading indicators that a person who does that is capable and likely to murder somebody in the future. And I don't say that to make you feel alarmed or scared, especially if you're in a situation where that has happened with a partner or someone you trust. I don't want you to panic or freak out, but if you can find a private way to reach out to someone for help, there are a number of DV hotlines that you can anonymously talk to. Please do talk to somebody, because again, that is one of the leading indicators that the violence will escalate at some point. And I just don't want to see anybody lose their lives to something like this, especially women. We have not been educated and told that if someone does anything around your throat or even your face, that it is very serious, it is not your fault, and that you have every right to get out of that situation, because that can come down to saving your life. So I just wanted to share that really quick. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So back to the story. Now, Chris said that he wrapped Shanann up in a bed sheet and put her in his truck. And then he got Bella and Cece and put them in the back seat. And the girls at this point were still alive and were very confused as to where they were going in the middle of the night. But of course, they trusted their dad. Why wouldn't they?
The girls are still in the truck. Okay.
Did they ask you what you were doing, taking mommy out, or?
Yeah, I don't remember what I told them, but they did ask that. What they say specifically? It was more of like, what are you doing to mommy? Okay. Alright. And then the girls, right? Okay. You mentioned Bella was first.
Chris drove to a nearby oil site where he worked, and this is where he just kind of like loosely buried Shanann in the dirt, ended his 2 innocent daughters, and placed them in the oil tanks. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Now, after committing these atrocious acts, Chris Watts got right to work erasing his family from his life. Like, he literally called his daughter's school to let them know the girls wouldn't be attending anymore. Not that, like, they're just not gonna be in, they're not feeling well today. No, that they wouldn't be attending at all anymore, and reached out to a realtor saying that he planned to sell his house. Then he went off to work as he would on any other day. Okay, petty my coping mechanism. I'm gonna have to shift into this really quick. Y'all, roll the intros. Remember how I said I think Chris is an actual dumbass? Like, the man did this to his beautiful, innocent family, and then, like, within an hour or so, literally called his daughter's school to tell them they wouldn't be coming to school, like, ever? Like never again. And then he called to sell his house. I'm just like, what in the actual whole grain, gluten-free idiocy is this? Listen, at the end of the day, we love a stupid criminal because that helps them get caught and convicted. So love that for him. But I'm just like, what the actual, Chris, bring it in, Chris, bring it in, okay? I don't like you, but I'm gonna have you come a little closer. Like, real quick, here's a 10-second alternative thought you could have had. Instead of taking your wife and children from this world and calling schools and selling your house, how about divorce? Here, I will spell it out. D-I-V-O-R-C-E. D-I-V-O-R-C-E. Literally 50% of marriages end this way. The stat's probably even higher than that now. So just come on, okay? Come on in, the water's fine, join the fun, get a divorce. I'm sure there's a whole volleyball team you can join of the divorcees. It's just what you don't have to do is end your family. Just end that little piece of paper called a marriage certificate. It's a lot easier. Takes a couple of days. 10 out of 10 would definitely recommend, instead of the absolute fuck shit hell you did to them. Sorry, y'all. I don't like Christopher. This is how I cope. He also Googled the lyrics to the Metallica song Battery. The lyrics read, Pounding out aggression turns into obsession, cannot kill the battery, cannot kill the family. Okay, edgelord. Something that clearly never occurred to Chris as he was busy moving on with his life was that his wife's friends cared a lot about her and talked to her literally all the time, bless her. So it took only a few hours, not days, hours, before Shanann's close friend, Nichol Atkinson, realized something was wrong. And our girl didn't waste a single moment listening to Chris's excuses that Shanann was, on a play date with the kids. She called the police, who searched the house that very afternoon. She is a f***ing legend for stepping up like that.
Hi, Stacey. My name's Nicole, and I'm calling because I'm concerned about a friend of mine. I dropped her off at her house at 2 in the morning last night because we were out of town together, and we were on the way back from the airport, and she was having issues, and she's pregnant. And I haven't been able to get a hold of her this morning, and I've gone to her house, and her car's there, and stuff like that, but she won't answer the door, she won't answer phone calls, she won't answer text messages, and I'm just really, really concerned. And she had a doctor's appointment this morning, and she didn't go to it, and I don't know what to do. I've called him and talked to him, and he said that she went on a play date with her other 2 daughters, but, if she went on a play date, they're both in car seats. Why would she not take her car?
Keys are in the igniter on the center console of the car. Her cash, all her ID, everything's still here. Phone's here.
Police officers also went with Chris to a neighbor's house to watch surveillance footage of the street where, surprise, surprise, it was revealed that the only vehicle that had driven away from the Watts family house that night was Chris's.
My detective just showed up, so he'll probably want to talk to you. He'd probably, like I said, he might have you call at the bank and see if there's any kind of activity.
Because if there was any sort of action out there, his cameras, I would have got it.
Like we had issues the other week when people were stealing stuff out of garages and stuff like that. And I had to park my truck right here.
Park right here.
Yeah.
So you can see if
I can see where someone tried to jim me with a flathead screwdriver.
Any action would have happened, any cars or anything left your house, I would have
got it. It would have been right in that area. They should have picked me.
Oh, it'll pick up anything coming down the street this way.
You know where that tree there?
Oh yeah.
Now, police, friends, and family began handing out flyers and interviewing neighbors and posting on social media, desperate for information about what happened to Shanann and the girls. And Chris made a public plea, he used that word very lightly, for his family to be returned to him. And y'all, I'm just gonna let you decide for yourself whether or not you think he is in any way convincing, let alone feeling any type of guilt, as a worried husband and father.
I hope that she's somewhere safe right now and with the kids. But could she event? Could she just take it off? I don't know. But if somebody has her and they're not safe, I want them back now. That's what's in my head. If they're safe right now, they're gonna come back. But if they're not safe right now, that's the not knowing part. If they're not safe, last night I had every light in the house on. I was hoping that I would just ran over by the kids running in the door and just barrel rushing me, but it didn't happen. And it was just a traumatic night trying to be here. For nobody to be here last night and to go into their rooms and know that I wasn't gonna turn the rain machines on. And I know that I wasn't gonna turn their monitor on. No, I wasn't gonna kiss them to bed tonight. It was that's why last night was just horrible. I couldn't do it. I want everybody to just come home. Wherever they're at, come home. That's what I want. Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. If somebody has her, just please bring her back. I need to see everybody. I need to see everybody again. This house is not complete without anybody here. Please bring her back.
Hold on. I'm sorry, y'all. I can't with this trifling ass bullshit right now. Okay, hold on. This whole ass bitch right here, I'm sorry, and this dick biscuit over here really had the pair of low hangers to stand outside his house. The house where he literally just ended his wife from the world. This hoe must have greased it up, threw on a banana hammock and a t-shirt, and stood there like he was O.J. Simpson or something, talking about, I don't know what could have happened. Well, guess what, Christopher? You f***ing killed them and we can see right through you. I usually go through and like do like point by point deep dive and assessment over like words and body language and that smile that he keeps showing.
I just want them to come back.
I'm gonna take this horrible monster, Chris Watts, and I'm gonna let another horrible monster, R. Kelly, be the one to assess. Point and counterpoint, bitch.
I hope that she's somewhere safe right now and with the kids.
I hope this camera keep going.
No, we're gonna let the camera keep rolling.
If they're safe right now, they're gonna come back.
Y'all killing me with this.
But if they're not safe right now, that's the not knowing part. Like,
doesn't even make sense.
She came home from the airport 2 a.m. and I left around 5:15. She was still here. Like, I had texted Shanann a few times that day, called her, say, you know, but she never got back to me, but she wasn't getting back to any of her people as well. And that's what really concerned a lot of people, is like, if she's not getting back to her, like, if she doesn't get back to me, that's fine, like, she gets busy during the day, but she didn't get back to her people, which was very concerning. And Nichol called me when she was at the door, and that's when I came home.
I am not per se a supporter of the death penalty, but sometimes people really be trying it. The thing that like really gets me about this interview, firstly, not once does he make any pleas to the camera asking for any information, task force, the community to help find his wife and kids. Nothing. Half the time, he can't even refer to them by their names. Shanann, Bella, Celeste, he can't even refer to them as his family. He just refers to them loosely as like anybody, or like, you know, it's not the same with nobody here.
I want everybody to just come home. Like, wherever they're at, come home. I need to see everybody. I need to see everybody again. This house is not complete without anybody here.
There's not anybody. It's just like, it's very telling that he's just so detached. I mean, like, do you see this heifer smiling? Smiling? I know y'all see it, right? It happens often. That is what is most disturbing to me. Like, beyond what he did to his innocent family, which is the most awful thing. In addition to that, just a few short hours after placing them in an oil well, he's smiling. Literally. Christopher, I want to tell you something. F you, Christopher. Okay, great, thanks. Class dismissed. Thankfully, after all these BS charades and over 6 hours of interrogation and a polygraph test that he failed flat on his face because we're talking about Chris Watts' dumbass, the real Chris started to come out, and after failing, Chris admitted to his dad and then to police that he had, in fact, ended Shanann. But don't count this bitch a confessed man just yet. Oh no, Chris couldn't possibly take accountability for his acts that easily. No, instead, yes, he confessed to what he did to Shanann, but his reasoning? He claimed that Shanann was the one who had ended their kids, and he was just reacting out of shock and rage. These were innocent people just trying to live. Like, can you imagine? Shanann comes home, her home that she built with Chris and their kids, the place that she is supposed to feel the safest, and she's attacked and ended by the one person who literally swore in front of family that he would love and protect her forever. And let's not forget that Shanann was with child, and Chris has the actual audacity to blame her for all of this, and she's no longer here. I think he's so deep in his disdain for Shanann and his ego-driven selfishness that his final act of evil on her is to try and make the world believe that Shanann was the monster and that Shanann could have done that to Bella and Cece. And I don't know if it gets more inhumane than that, honestly. But for the time being, police had what they needed: a partial confession and, most importantly, the location of where he put them. And on August 21st, Chris Watts was charged with 3 counts of first-degree M, plus 2 additional first-degree charges for victims being 12 or younger. And he was also charged with the unlawful termination of a pregnancy and faced 3 counts of tampering with a body. And in November of 2018, Chris Watts pled guilty to all 9 charges and was sentenced to life in prison. He got off with his life. Now, there's been some updates and new information you may not be aware of about this case. So, you know, just go ahead, buckle up, place your arms inside the vehicle, legs, all of that stuff. It's time to really dig into what this doc is about. And let's start with the other woman, the pool dipping toe lady, Nichol Kessinger. Kessinger, aka Sketch Queen.
Everything is going to plan, and still to this day, I don't even know what's a lie and what's not. I don't even know if they were like filing for divorce. I don't know if they were putting the house up. I don't even know anymore.
Okay, remember earlier when I said that Chris had been getting his flute played by another wind musician, meaning he was having an affair? Well, allow me to introduce you to his mistress, Miss Nichol Kessinger. Kessinger, people say it a couple of different ways.
To me, it wasn't going to be an extended thing. Like, if it got to the point where we were, like, dating for, like, 3 or 4 months and he's still talking about, oh, I'm going to move out, I'm going to sell the house, I think at that point I probably would have just been like, I don't think you're really, like, doing these things you say you're going to do. And I probably would have just, like, left, because at that point, it's not fair. It wasn't fair to me in the first place. It wasn't fair to her in the first place. It wasn't fair to any of us in the first place.
Now pause. I want to make sure no one confuses things, okay? So Nichol Kessinger, the woman Chris was cheating with, was not Shanann's friend Nicole Atkinson. The two Nicoles in this case couldn't be more different. So for the sake of clarity, I'm going to refer to Shanann's hero best friend Nicole as Nicole and Chris's mistress as Nikki, aka Darling Nikki. If you're a Prince fan, you know what I'm talking about. So Nikki, Darling Nikki, was born in 1988 in Colorado. And now we don't know much about her upbringing beyond her father's name, but she did attend Colorado State University and graduated in 2013 with a degree in geology and geosciences. She was working under a contract with Tasman Geosciences, and in 2018, Tasman was contracted to work with Anadarko Petroleum, which is where Chris worked and how they met. And fun fact, Chris did not wear his wedding ring to work, okay? If ever you needed a sign that someone is an asshole, that might be it. Now, there's a lot of speculation surrounding Darling Nikki, so let's start with what we know. Now, she and Chris worked together at Anadarko Petroleum, and they started exchanging work-related emails on June 12, 2018, a few weeks after Chris learned his wife was pregnant with their third child. The relationship between Chris and Nikki got very serious very quickly, and before long, the pair were exchanging love letters and meeting in secret. And side note, according to a forensic analysis of Darling Nikki's phone, Nikki had been Googling Chris and Shanann Watts' names up to a year before she and Chris started emailing in the summer of 2018. A lot of people talk about that. So the question is, like, was she kind of like harboring a longtime crush on, you know, this oblivious coworker? Or did the romantic relationship between her and Chris actually begin back then in 2017? Like, we don't know for sure because, unfortunately, police admit that once Chris confessed to his crimes, they pretty much halted any further investigation into Nicole and took her word for it that she and Chris had only been dating for like 2 months, which you'll see why this like really frustrates me, as I think a lot of additional context and potential evidence was lost because of this move. I don't entirely know why they did this. Obviously, I'm not in law enforcement. I don't know how all of these things work, right? But we'll get to those thoughts. So back in 2018, according to Darling Nikki, Chris told her that he was in the middle of getting a divorce. So apparently he has no problem saying the word D-I-V-O-R-C-E at that time, Christopher. Sorry. Now, at the time of Chris's arrest, Darling Nikki also claimed that she didn't know Shanann was pregnant until she'd heard on the news after her disappearance. Why do I totally and completely think that's bullshit? Based off of the analysis of Darling Nikki's phone, we know that on July 24th, about a month after she and Chris exchanged those alleged first work emails, Nikki Google searched "man I'm having affair with says he will leave his wife," because, you know, nothing says I didn't know he was married like doing a Google search about your man leaving his wife. But what do I know? So Darling Nikki, darling Nikki, was fully aware that she was the other woman, which I'm just kind of like, if you're looking for a man's, there are men's out there, you know what I mean? And like, yeah, you might have to like date around and you're gonna meet some assholes and you're gonna meet some asses, but guess what? You fell for one. I don't understand the whole like, let me go after this guy who is like fully in the wedding bag and he's got like the kids, picket fence, he got all of that, but like, it just move on to someone else. I'm sorry.
It wasn't fair to me to have him lie to me and make me think that everything is going to plan, and still to this day I don't even know what's a lie and what's not. I don't even know if they were like filing for divorce. I don't know if they were putting the house up. I don't even know.
Now, I do need to remind all of us, including myself, that being an adulterous homewrecker is not a crime. But just because it's not illegal doesn't mean a bitch can't judge you for it, okay? Try keeping it in your pants next time, darling Nikki. Seriously, the whole secret marital affair thing is just like weird, but I digress. Now, around that same time in July, Chris was Googling, these couple of winners here, he was Googling when to say I love you for the first time in a new relationship. By early August in 2018, darling Nikki was Googling wedding dresses and typing in things like marrying your mistress. She was clearly convinced that she and Chris were a sealed deal, even though she knew he was married to somebody else. You know, she's just like, I got him in the bag, done and dusted. All he needs is a divorce and my ring size. But you know what like really gets me about dirty little darling Nikki here is she also looked up Shanann's Facebook account. Now, a reminder, Shanann posted much of her life on her Facebook page. Like, bless her heart, the girl, you know, the whole concept of overshare, Shanann was doing a little bit of this, you know? I should know, I've done it myself. But while scheming in the dark and, you know, sniffing out her competition, you know, the married man's wife, darling Nikki would have seen Shanann's Facebook post that had the video announcement about her and Chris expecting another child, because it was something she mentioned like literally on every other post.
So pink means...
That's just the test.
I know. It just says the pink is going to be girls.
I don't know.
Yet a few weeks later, Nikki would tell police that she had no idea that Shanann was pregnant until she saw it in the news. I'm sorry, I'm acting like this because I call bullshit. Like just, you know, ripe old marinated, aged to perfection, spread over a buttery biscuit bullshit.
I take a step back and it's just like, I didn't know. Like, he's so disgusting. I'm so ashamed of him and everything, and
I think Nikki likely lied to make herself look better in the interviews with police. And the big question being, was she potentially lying just to save face? Or was she lying because she was covering up some type of involvement? I mean, listen, y'all, okay. Do you remember the Scott Peterson case? I know this sounds like I'm taking a detour, but just a quick refresh. In 2004, Scott Peterson was tried and convicted for the unaliving of, wait for it, his pregnant wife. He and Chris could honestly be pen pals. And what else do Chris Watts and Scott Peterson have in common? They were both having affairs on their pregnant wives. Yes, Scott Peterson was having an affair with a woman named Amber Fry, and it became, you know, a central focus of the trial where she actually testified.
Scott told me he was not married.
And so back to darling Nikki over here, after Chris ended his entire family, guess what Miss Darling Nikki's little fingers were busy doing? She was literally hitting up the Google machine and she asked the Googler, did people hate Amber Fry? Yeah, I'm gonna just leave that right there, let y'all talk amongst yourselves. But don't worry, because these Google searches are about to get a whole lot worse for Nikki. So on the afternoon of the crimes, meaning Chris had ended his beautiful, innocent family, Chris and Nikki had several phone calls back and forth that lasted until about 2 a.m. the following morning. And we don't know what the pair discussed on those calls, but it's interesting to note that later the next day, August 14th, Nikki started Googling things like, can cops trace text messages? Which I'm sorry, I gotta do it. Nikki, come here. How you gonna be worried asking if cops can trace text messages and put in your internet search history, can cops trace text messages? Like, child, how did you not think that they'd also be tracing your Google search history? You're worried about some text, but not your Googling of super suspicious searches about hiding said texts from said police? Make it make sense, Nikki. Nikki. Oh, someone need to tell Nikki to have a seat. Have several seats, okay? I'm sorry, I'm done. But you know what, I'm not entirely done, because Nikki also tried to delete all of her text messages with Chris and his contact card. Bitch. Oh, not the contact card. Listen, I get it. We don't fully know the potential extent of Nikki's involvement. Maybe she somehow didn't know some things. And we know that if she genuinely didn't know, that people can react to, you know, that kind of shocking news in all kinds of ways. But when your first course of action after the news breaks of what happened, when your first reaction is to delete any potential evidence that you were boinking the killer, that's what the kids call sus, okay? On August 15th, so this is 2 days after Chris ended his family, darling Nikki came forward to the police to let them know that she was having an affair with Chris, something police actually already knew due to a tip-off from the Anadarko regional manager where she and Chris worked. And I imagine she didn't just volunteer thinking nobody knew. I'm sure she was like, probably figured they already knew and was terrified. The police got a hold of those texts she was trying to hide, and when they asked her about them, she admitted they were embarrassing and raunchy and she didn't want any of it to get out, which, okay, fine, understandable, if that's actually the truth. But so just to paint the full awful picture, this is also around the time that she started Googling about Scott Peterson's mistress, Amber Fry. Remember, we just talked about that mistress? But that Google search gets even more fucked up, because in Nikki's searches, darling Nikki over here was actually trying to assess how much money the Scott's mistress, Amber Fry, made off of her Scott Peterson cheating murder scandal. Bitch, I'm sorry. When the whole grain, gluten-free Pete Davidson on a mixed green salad, who the hell is Googling how much money a mistress to a murderer can make? Kristen, does that make any sense to you, Kristen? I didn't think so, Samantha. I know, yeah, we on the same page, Samantha. Yeah, you got it, girl. So for someone to be Googling how much money she could potentially make from the situation just days after learning that the man she loves ended his whole family is callous at best. But after Chris confessed to the M's, Nikki wasn't questioned any further. Someone explain to me why that is the thing, because I still have questions of my own. So let's listen to a few clips from Nikki's interview with Weld County detectives. This interview takes place after it's become known that Chris Watts has ended innocent Shanann and his family.
I think I met him sometime in June, probably early June. It might have been May. It was just talking at work. It was pretty casual. He didn't have a wedding ring on his finger. And every time I talked to him, he didn't tell me that he was in a relationship. He didn't even mention his kids right away either. And then one day he told me that he had 2 kids. I was like, that's pretty cool. And started telling me about his kids.
That sounded like a sarcastic comment.
No, I thought it was kind of cute. I was like, oh, he's a dad. It was like right around Father's Day too. So whenever that is in June. So
I'm not good with holidays.
He told me he had kids, and then it was Father's Day shortly after that. So that's what I do know. And I was like, I thought it was cute. And then he mentioned that he did have a significant other. And then he told me that those 2 were in the process of a separation. I didn't know his significant other's name for a while. And then I think he told me his kids' names pretty quick, but to be honest with you, on an exact date of when that happened, I don't know.
So she didn't know Shanann's name, even though she'd been Googling it up to a year prior. Okay. Also, am I the only one who thinks it's weird how flippant she's acting? I mean, at this point, she knows that her lover did this to his whole family, including very, very small kids.
One of those 2 days. But we had went out and we stopped there just real quick on the way back. and we were there not very long. But that time, I saw a picture of his wife and one of his kids, and I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, she's so beautiful. And I like took a step back, and I was just like, this man has a gorgeous house. He has beautiful babies. He has a beautiful wife. He has an awesome job. Like, why would he want to leave this? Talking to him about it, and that was the first time that I tried to actually say, what do you think about not separating from your wife? Like, what if you really try to work on this? And he had expressed to me that we've tried to work on this, and it's not working, so that is why we're separating. And I spent some time, like, just, you know, kind of, because it almost made me feel bad, where I was, like, to the point where I'm engaging in a relationship with a man who, the way he described it, is in a contractual agreement, but was not in, like, an emotional relationship with somebody. And for me, the way I would have preferred to do this is to avoid it till that contractual agreement was also done, and he was done. I really try to take everything with this whole situation very slow. The only part that I screwed up on was the fact that he wasn't completely separated from her when him and I decided to spend time with each other. That is where I screwed up. But other than that, everything else, it was always like, you build your life, I'm going to build my life, we will intertwine them, but I am not ready to, like, do this.
I do love that she claims she wanted to take things slow. I mean, you know, slow, like literally Googling wedding dresses 2 months after their affair began. I mean, I don't know, I usually Google wedding dresses after the 3rd date, okay? So that's totally, I guess she was taking it slow, because I'm really like, you know, on date 1, I'm like, what size wedding dress am I gonna be? Does he like white or off-white? The aisle, y'all. I can't. I wear this giant ring here because I'm like, there ain't no room for nobody to slip no engagement ring on this finger, okay? The space has been taken up, okay? Don't come with me with an engagement. I ain't the one. Sorry, y'all know, again, petty coping mechanism. I have to make this palatable because I just think like this stuff with darling Nikki is so just kind of absurd to me.
In the short period of time that you guys were together, he became very attached to you.
Yes, very, very attached.
He's sending cards,
flowers.
He's telling you he loves you. He sends you flowers. Does he buy you any other gifts?
Nope. I wouldn't have wanted them anyways. Flowers is enough. I don't need expensive stuff.
Okay. But he becomes very attached.
Yes.
You guys are talking multiple times a day, at least.
All the time.
You're seeing each other on a regular basis.
Yep.
So it's a very, and his wife is not around, nor are his children. So there's a lot of time for you guys to build your relationship in this first four weeks or so. Is that fair?
Yeah, and even when she was back, I mean, it was still like we were still spending time together. He was still spending time with his children, and I had my own life. Like, it's not fair. It wasn't fair to me in the first place. It wasn't fair to her in the first place. It wasn't fair to any of us in the first place. It wasn't fair to me to have him lie to me and make me think that everything is going to plan. And I don't even know.
But in my opinion, Nikki keeps kind of pulling the victim. She seems pretty focused on how the situation affects her, and ironically doesn't understand that she very much helped create this unfair situation by being involved with a married man. Even if she did believe what he was telling her, she was simultaneously looking at Shanann's Facebook posts, and Shanann was very public about how happy her marriage and family life was. All that to say, we're not always good at telling when someone is lying or telling the truth, but also common sense and logic needs to have a place in there at some point. On the morning of August 13th, just after he ended his family, Chris Googled those Metallica lyrics that I, mentioned earlier. He would later claim that darling Nikki was the person who told him to look up those lyrics. And if that's true, that paints Nikki in a very bad light. But when looking over the evidence, I wonder if this is yet another example of Chris lying. Like, he was the one who was the Metallica fan, not Nikki, to our knowledge.
Oh yeah, definitely wearing this. Are you serious?
Also, we know from their phone records that the pair had no contact on the morning of the crime. So I'm not sure how she could have told him to look up the song unless she was there that night, which leads us to another, we'll call it conspiracy theory, that has popped up online. Neighbors have given statements that they saw a truck near the house that wasn't Chris's on the night of the crime. And some people speculate that this was Nikki's truck because at 6:16 a.m. on the morning of the crime, Nikki's cell phone, Miss Darling Nikki's, Mistress Nikki's cell phone pinged in Frederick, Colorado, where the Watts family lived, which is odd because she lived 20 minutes away. And 20 minutes without traffic, that's quite a distance away. But you know, there isn't any security footage that shows her vehicle. And like, let's be honest, Chris really did not do a good job of covering his tracks. So it's hard to believe in certain ways that he'd be able to hide it if Nikki was also there. But still, like, her cell phone ping it's odd. Now, another undeniably kind of strange, odd bit of behavior is that mere hours after he ended his family, Chris and Nikki are on the phone, and according to Nikki, she encouraged him to pawn his wife's wedding ring.
When we were on the phone, at one point, he mentioned to me, I can't even believe I have to say this, she left her wedding ring here. And I said something along the lines of, does that mean you two are done? And he was like, oh my God. He said, how much do you think it's worth? And I remember hearing him say that and being like, what the fuck? And I remember thinking to myself, like, I don't even know how to respond to this. And so I was like, I don't know, pawn it, man. And I was just like, I pawn jewelry all the time. I pawn jewelry a few times. I was like, it's not worth shit though. And I was like, so I don't know if you really want to do that. And he's like, no, I think I'm going to get it appraised. It's a nice rock. And I was just like, okay.
Nikki, I have questions, like so many questions. Where is Nichol now? Well, in the years since the crime, she has changed her name and thankfully did not publish a book about being Chris Watts' mistress. I don't know, maybe her Google searches about how much money Amber Fry made off of Scott and what he did to his wife proved to not be a very lucrative business. I don't know. Now, Chris, he claims that Nikki still writes letters to him in prison using her new name, and according to him, the pair are still very much in love. Now, the problem with Chris Watts is that besides being a fucking asshole of epic proportions, he's also a liar. Fuck Chris Watts' feelings, I don't care. But on the flip side, Chris is also obsessed with blaming darling Nikki for his actions. An author named Cheryl Cadle has been in regular contact with Chris and has gone on to publish a book of his letters to her. This is what Chris said about darling Nikki. If I had not met Nikki, I would never have ended my family. Yay. So, this winter went from blaming his pregnant wife to blaming his mistress for the repugnant, disgusting shit that he did with his own literal bare hands. Winner, winner, fuck your dinner. Currently, like, this is happening now. When asked to describe darling Nikki, he mentioned a Bible verse in Proverbs chapter 7, verse 25 through 27, part of which reads, "Don't let your heart lead you to an evil woman like that. Don't go where she wants to lead you. She has brought down some of the most powerful men. She has left many dead bodies in her path. Her house is the place of death. The road to it leads straight to the grave." It's clear to me that Chris is trying to blame Nikki for his monstrous actions because she led him down the wrong path. And the bottom line is that whether Nikki knew more than she admitted to, or even if we, take it to the farthest extent and suspect that Nikki could have helped in some kind of way, Chris absolutely deserves every second he spends in prison. But in my opinion, there does seem to be enough questions surrounding darling Nikki that I would, think warrants further investigation. But I don't think that's ever gonna happen.
And I'm just really, really concerned. And she had a doctor's appointment this morning, and she didn't go to it, and called him and talked to him, and he said that she went on a play date with her other two daughters.
Now, just to shift gears for a moment, in a case that is so dark and devastating, it's important to remember the kind of unsung heroes, if you will, the people who brought Chris Watts to justice swiftly and efficiently. Detectives in this case had to figure out a way to bring Chris's guard down. Like, they needed him to think that they were on his side so that he would tell them where his family was. Chris, like anyone, didn't want to be seen as a monster. Like, he wasn't a bad guy. He must have had a good reason for these actions, right? Watch how expertly this pair played Chris like a f***ing fiddle. First, they tell him he's normal for lying to them. It's what anyone would do. And then they give him an out by painting Shanann as the bad guy so Chris could be the good guy.
I know you want to tell us. I can see it in your face. Holding this lie in is going to do nothing for you.
I know this. Like,
okay.
I'm not like trying to like cover things up. Like,
yeah, but you kind of are, because it's normal. Normal people would do that. Normal people that make a mistake initially are going to go, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do anything. That's normal.
She did anything to these kids. We both love them with all our hearts. There's no way.
Did something happen to these baby girls first that you had to take into your own hands and deal with?
You had to clean it up for Shanann.
Chris, you gotta tell us. I feel like that's the type of guy that you are.
Now, the Chris Watts case was solved extremely quickly because his victims, his family, were found right away, and more importantly, there was a ton of forensic evidence on them. And also, let's not forget, Chris is a dumbass, so there's also that. I mean, the bitch boy folded like a wet newspaper under the pressure of the investigator's expert interrogation. Even the subtle ways the investigator just like would put her hand like on his back to like kind of be like reassuring, there, it's okay, Christopher, but really we're gonna nail your ass. Love it. At the end of the day, you can't solve a crime like this if you don't know a crime has even been committed. And the reason this case was solved so quickly is down to how fast Shanann and the girls were reported missing. And for that, we have Shanann's friend Nichol Atkinson to thank, the hero Nichol. Nichol just sprung into action. Like when Shanann missed her doctor's appointment at 9 a.m., Nichol wasted no time in going to the doctor's office herself, confirming Shanann wasn't there, and then calling the police. And bravo. And this leads me to another fact, which I think is super important for us all to remember for our own safety. There's a myth that you have to wait 24 or 48 hours to file a missing persons report. This sadly used to be true in many places in the US, and this policy actually led to a lot of unnecessary deaths and trails just going completely cold. Fortunately, it's no longer the case, and we have to commend, the police in this particular case for their quick action. I wish other victims, especially victims from marginalized communities, got this same kind of fast action all the time. But at least here, at least this family did. And it's really important that we know you don't have to wait 24 or 48 hours. You can call immediately. If you know something's wrong, just call. Better to be safe than not. And the police took Shanann's friend Nichole's concerns seriously and sent an officer out that way, that very afternoon to meet with her.
And it's normal. Normal people would do that. Normal people that make a mistake initially are going to go, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do anything. That's normal.
Now, I want to take a breath for a moment and zoom out from this case to a more global perspective in regards to abusive relationships. Now, y'all know that with a Swoop doc, I like to take a sidebar moment to discuss warning signs and red flags in general in order to help you be able to identify any potential signals that might be happening in your own life or a friend or a family member. And I believe that the more that we talk about this and normalize these conversations, the better equipped we are at identifying the signs and learning how to handle these situations and better protect ourselves. So the most visible form of abuse is physical or DV. But in this case alone, I've seen countless interviews with friends and family who claim that Chris never exhibited any violent behavior, which in many ways makes this even more terrifying, right? Like, how do you spot the devil in sheep's clothing when he never shows his horns until it's just too late? Now, you're not gonna believe this because this just kind of shocked the shit out of me, but statistically speaking, Shanann was actually at an increased risk for DV because she was pregnant. Yeah, you You heard that right, unfortunately. DV is more common than any other health problem among women during pregnancy. Greatly threatens both the mother's and baby's health. DV is a pattern of assault, coercive behavior, including physical, sexual, and psychological attacks, as well as economic coercion that adults use against their partners. Now, to expand on that a moment, here is a list of facts from the DV and pregnancy fact sheet. H is the leading cause of death among pregnant women in the United States. 50 to 75% of women abused before pregnancy are abused during. It is estimated that up to 20% of pregnant women experience violence during their pregnancy, and 77% of pregnant H victims are killed early during the first trimester. I genuinely can't think of something much more up than assaulting a pregnant person. It makes me absolutely sick to think about that. Like the research reveals, it all has to do with control, right? It's like when a woman gets pregnant, this can cause an abusive partner to feel like they are not in charge of the situation anymore. Control in a relationship is a frequent indicator of abuse, and that control can be exerted in many different ways. Like, you might be familiar with the power and control cycle of abuse. I've shown it in previous docs before, but to recap, there's use of intimidation, emotional abuse, using isolation, minimizing, isolating, and blaming, using male privilege, economic abuse, coercion, and threats. Not to make this about me at all, but just to be open in hopes that it might help some of you feel comfortable being open about what you've survived, and know that it's okay to talk about it, and I promise you it is. I am a survivor of IPV with more than one person, DV and SA, and I can tell you without a doubt, it can be hard to even recognize the warning signs if you're in a relationship with someone who has control issues that are abusive. My first relationship was with a significantly older man who groomed me as a child and then repeatedly assaulted me as a child, and I was totally alone. He was really skilled at gaslighting and manipulating me, and made me feel like if I ever told anyone what he was doing to me, he'd convince me that I would lose everything that I ever cared about, that I would get expelled from school, and my parents would disown me, and my friends would hate me, and on top of all of that, that I'd burn in hell for my sins, when in actuality, those coercive control techniques that he was doing of, like isolating me and blaming me and using intimidation, like all of those abuse tactics made me feel like I had just no power, no family support, no friends, and no one to talk to. It's hard to see it. It really is, and that's not your fault. For example, like, does your partner regularly check your credit card statements and get upset when they see you've been spending your money? Does your partner guilt trip you every time you choose to hang out with your friends instead of with them? Like, do you notice, like your partner saying negative things about your close friends and family in an attempt to get you to distance yourself from those other people? The only reason an abuser exerts coercive control is because they're afraid of the power that you have. I'm literally not making this up. They know deep down that you could potentially destroy them if you spoke out, if you left them. That's what I was told when I was a child with this very much older adult man, that if I ever talked to anybody, that I would destroy him, and then I would destroy my own family, and I don't want to be responsible for that. No one would forgive me for doing that. They lose all of the power in those scenarios, and they know that you're the one who can flip that power switch. And I'm not saying this to make any one of you feel pressured if you currently are in an abusive situation. I just want you to know that regardless of what lies this person in your life may have told you, may be telling you right now, or might be telling a friend of yours or a family member of yours, you do have power and you do have options, and there are organizations ready and willing to help support you however you need if you feel you can reach out safely whenever you're ready and not a moment before. This is only on your time. And I just want you to know that you are worth it. You are worth getting out of that abusive relationship. I know that they're telling you that you're not, that you're making it bigger in your head than it really is, that it's nothing, that it's somehow your fault. It's not. You are worth it. You do deserve to get out. There are ways to do it safely. You are so valuable, and I believe you, and I believe what you're going through, and I know that you are strong enough to get out of it. Okay, sorry. Little sidebar moment. We're gonna get back to the story.
I know that from that interrogation, and all that was like a coercive type psychological intimidation of someone that, you know, had never been in that situation before.
A family annihilator, and I don't know how often I could say that word, so I'm going to say a family A, is someone who annihilates their family. Yeah, what it says basically in the name tag. But the term exists because it's common enough for there to be an existing profile of this type of person who commits this type of awful thing. The profile looks like this. They are typically male, they're middle or upper class, they're upstanding family men, there are often signs of financial troubles, and they tend to fit the profile of a negative narcissist. Family A's are not necessarily violent, which makes their abuse harder to spot. And my question is, does this profile fit Chris Watts? Well, let's start with an element that's not widely discussed and is actually a recent development in the case. So Chris Watts has recently begun issuing statements that, surprise, surprise, the bitch wants to get out of prison. He's not a risk to the general public, he says, and more importantly, he's a changed man. How has he changed? By finding faith and redemption, because God has bigger plans for him, according to Chris, and those plans can't be accomplished behind bars, conveniently.
I know that God has a plan for me, and it's to be in prison right now, but not stay here. Because he brought me here for a reason. But he also wants me to just put me outside, and I know I just can't sit here and just wait. I know there's waiting doing nothing, and there's waiting that speaking an action verb. That's what I'm doing. But I also want to know what action to take, because I have no intellect when it comes to the law. But I know he can teach me, and that's what I'm just waiting for. Like things to fall into place, I still know how to do it.
I'm sorry, okay, we had an emotional moment and now I gotta go back to being Professor Petty. All of this self-pity, victim mentality, God is on my side, streaming out of Chris Watts from his ass and his face, all the same. That region, yeah, it's got me feeling just like a certain type of way. Chris has confessed to ending his family multiple times, and he has the gall, the gumption, the unmitigated audacity to complain that his interrogation was a coercive type psychological interrogation.
They asked me, I was just agreeing with them and just going along with what they said, because I was like, well, I guess we had to tell them something. And even when they came here to prison and interrogated me, they were in the street clothes acting like they didn't, they were just talking to me, when in retrospect they were actually interrogating me again. I know that from that interrogation to the first one, and all that was like a coercive type psychological intimidation of someone that, had never been in that situation before.
Oh, yeah, it was. And it's a beautiful thing to watch, Christopher. Chrissy boy, bring it in, Chrissy. You annihilated your family for no effing reason. You got caught, you got convicted, so you can be off to off mountain and sing the national anthem of I don't give a because guess what? I don't give a Sorry, y'all.
I get in trouble for that one, but I don't give it to.
I don't give it to! I don't give it to!
Friendly reminder again that thanks to our hero, Nicole Atkinson, it took police all of 15 minutes to squeeze that confession out of him and arrest him.
What, like it's hard?
Oh, and that's not all. As if Shanann's family hasn't been through enough, Chris keeps changing his story about how he committed these crimes, and with each retelling, the details just get worse. In his latest version, he says that he smothered both Bella and Celeste twice because they didn't actually pass the first time. This doesn't line up with his original confessions, nor does it line up with the official version of the case told at trial. He's literally saying that he did this to his daughters twice, that he was capable of doing this to them twice. But then he wants to like turn around and talk out of his ass face and be like, yeah, I'm not a danger to society, no! Chris really seems like a changed man who feels a lot of remorse for his actions, doesn't he? I mean, I would totally feel safe with this delusional person out on the street. Sorry, I'm really choosing my words now because I have said a lot of things about him because I don't like Chris. Anyways, recently, Chris spoke to a man posing as a friend of a friend who tells Chris that he's basically the underdog.
Whatever you're trying to do, you're always being told no. What you can't do is allow yourself to lose hope. Don't take no for an answer. And don't give up the first time you're told no. You understand?
Yeah.
So the key in all this is you got to be strong. You got to be physically strong. You got to be mentally strong. And you've got to understand that, you know what? You're the underdog, but underdogs can win.
I hope this camera keep going.
No, we're gonna let the camera keep rolling.
And Chris, of course, sees himself that way, a changed man who is valiantly, I think that's the word. Chris, of course, sees himself that way, a changed man who is valiantly trying to break free from an unfair prison sentence. Miss me with this victim mindset, please and thank you, tiny piece of fecal matter. Okay.
Y'all killing me with this.
Class dismissed. Child, okay, I need a whole lot of cute kitties to cleanse my soul after this one. This one was ups and downs. I'm sorry, y'all. There was a lot of petty coping. It's triggering. We got a little emotional. I hope for those of you that my words about if you're experiencing DV, I hope that you can take at least some of that to heart if it helps even just one of you. That is all I can ask for. But let's look at the babies. The babies, aren't they just the cutest? I just love them so much. Excuse, please, the tone shift. I have to say some things that I say at the end of all of my docs. If you want to join the Petty University community, welcome, come one, come all. Would love to have you. Also, if you want to grab your original Petty University apparel items, those are linked below as well. A couple of Twitter shout outs from my last doc. It is part 3 of the deep dive into the Moscow, Idaho case against Bryan Kohberger. If you haven't seen it, it is linked below. We dig into all of the new evidence as that case heads into preliminary hearings in a couple of months. First shout out goes to Language Diary 1, who says, didn't expect to learn that incel is actually started by a woman from Canada with very positive and inclusive attitude from this vid. Judging from the description, it sounds very cozy. Sad it's now hijacked. I could not agree with you more. And actually, I think a lot of y'all who watched the last doc were surprised to learn the origins of incel. I certainly was. And so with that, second shout out goes to Dariel, who says, I learned today that the incel community was founded by a woman and angry men co-opted it and perverted it. But the page 118 thing, Plus, I do have to say the letter that only Banfield has, definitely sus. Swoop always on it. Dude, yeah, the incel thing really got me in that one, and Miss Banfield, look, I like Banfield, but also she just got me sometimes being like, but is that verified though? Because you're just exclaiming it without saying alleged half the time. I don't know, man. Banfield got me tripping. If you want to be my next Twitter shout out, make sure to follow me on Twitter at SpankyV, linked below, and retweet this video right here. Also, will you make my Instagram dreams come true and follow me on Instagram? Let's connect over there. I am trying to finally reach 100,000 followers there. I am halfway to this goal. I have never set a goal for my Instagram before, and I am doing it now because people say if you set goals, then good things happen. And I would love if you would join me on Instagram. That's where I respond most often to DMs from you. We do a lot of voting on topics. I cover more details of cases, all of that. And if y'all just followed me, then I would literally hit the goal in like one day. And then we have an amazing community over there. So yeah, you can check out my Instagram. It's linked below. Be sure to tap my link to get your AG1 and 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D3K2 and 5 travel packs free with your first purchase, and treat yourself to the self-care you deserve. I want to take another moment to remember the beautiful, innocent, deserving lives of Shanann, her daughters Bella and adorable Celeste, and her unborn child Nico. The devastation and toll this disgusting man's actions have caused is so utterly senseless and unfair. I know that nothing will ever be able to bring them back to this world and in the arms of their family and friends, but I do truly hope that at the very least his conviction provides some type of shred of healing for them, and I hope that no matter what, that the memories of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico will always be a blessing. This case is particularly terrifying because it's an example of evil hiding in plain sight. Chris may have been abhorrent to his wife in the weeks leading up to the crime, but he wasn't overtly abusive. Like, Shanann was upset with him, yes, but she wasn't afraid of him that we're aware of. The warning signs here were so easily overlooked, if they were even there at all. If you are expecting and your partner has expressed negative feelings about the pregnancy, try and provide a safe space for them to share what they're feeling, and hopefully they're open to communicating towards solutions that are healthy, and if they are not, you have options. This was a pretty heavy video and I want to end on a positive note, so here it is. Be like Nicole. Not Nikki, the other one, our homegirl, Nicole Atkinson. Trust your gut and be a staunch supporter of your friends and loved ones, period. In fact, go hug your best friends this week, okay? That's all I can say. And take care of yourself and know that you are valid, worthy, and you don't have to stay in a relationship if it's hurting you. You don't. Be kind, and y'all know when all else fails, stay ready, stay petty. Class dismissed. Swoop!